Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar on how to do more with less. And when we're talking about doing more with less, we're talking about enterprise automation. My name is Pat Cameron and I'm the Director of Automation Technology here at SkyBot Software, and I will be taking you through the webinar today. My partner in crime, Vivian, is not able to join me today, so it's not going to be nearly as much fun, but I will try to keep it interesting anyway. A little bit of an introduction about our parent company, Health Systems. Health Systems has been in the automation business for almost 29 years. I believe our anniversary is in September. And we have been in the automation and system scheduling world for, like I said, almost 29 years. We're located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, in the States, but we do have offices all around the world. SkyBot is the owner of, Health Systems is the owner of SkyBot Software, as well as a line of products for scheduling and monitoring on the IBM System I robot line of products. Any of you that have worked in the System I world, I'm sure are familiar with robot. PowerTech, which is a security line of products. SQL is a business intelligence tool. And Byteware does some virus protection as well as monitoring on the System I. These are just a few of the customers that we have, and you can see that we've got customers in all different kinds of businesses, small and large and retail, manufacturing, finance. So we've got customers all over the world and in all different types of businesses. So let's talk about enterprise scheduling and enterprise automation. These are some of the things to take a look at if you've got, I think that server sprawl is kind of happening across every data center that I've been in the last number of years. It's been quite a number of years, actually. And so what happens is a business unit might purchase an application that satisfies their needs, and then another server pops up in the IT department. So because of these multiple applications that are running on multiple systems, it's kind of difficult to manage all of those applications, and IT is unable to see the big picture. Every schedule runs on its own application, and then the IT staff needs to know where those dependencies are, wants to make sure that processes run on time and without any errors. And often those individual schedules don't have the sophisticated security or the auditing capabilities that are built into them, or any type of notification. If there are errors on your system, are you notified immediately if there's a problem, or are you surprised on Monday morning? Most of these applications have a scheduler that's just for that application. But if you have to have interfaces to other applications or dependencies outside of that app, such as maybe a file arriving from one of your customers or one of your vendors, or a process completing, these simple schedulers aren't built to take into account those types of dependencies. So business units will buy that application that meets their needs, and when they're deciding, they don't take a look at the platform or the hardware, because that really should not matter. The purpose of the application is to meet the needs of the business unit so that they can provide service to their customers, whether those customers are inside customers or outside clients. The purpose of the IT department is to provide service to those business units. So what you're doing is providing an internal cloud to run the various applications. And the service that IT provides includes security, backups, system availability, good performance, etc. In today's IT departments, you'll always find a variety of operating systems. So because you've got multiple applications and you've got multiple operating systems, it's difficult to manage those without seeing the big picture, like I said. Are you managing interfaces between different operating systems or between applications? IT needs to know where those dependencies are, and they need to make sure that processes run on time and without error. Often those individual schedules, like I said, don't have any security built into them, or they don't have the audit capability that's built into them that are required by today's regulations. Sometimes it's kind of like herding cats to get the information that you need to satisfy your auditors or your service level agreements. If you've got SLAs or service level agreements with some of your customers, you need to make sure that you're meeting those, and those multiple schedulers, again, make it difficult for you to do that. I've also heard people talk, when I've talked to various prospects and customers, that say that I don't really mind running this or that process because it only takes a minute. But you've got to think that it only takes that same minute every day or every weekend or every month end. And these minutes start to add up and may interfere with other responsibilities or may even interfere with your free time. So those types of instances ultimately depend on what you'll accept as your job responsibilities. If you expect to have to log in to run a process every night or every weekend, then that's up to you. But an enterprise job scheduler will assist you in managing those systems, managing them by their exceptions instead of you having to manage each process and each application individually. So, why would you want to look at an enterprise scheduler? Number of different reasons. Simplify your operations area. Let's try to get a handle on what's running, where it's running, and have some reporting that can help with that information. Monitoring all of your systems from one display. This is going to allow your system administrator to see the big picture. And also, there might be some staff that support only certain applications or certain hardware, certain servers. So you want to be able to filter those views as well as have the big picture so that they can see and support and monitor only those applications that they support. Again, we want to be able to manage our systems by their exceptions. If everything is running okay, we'll let it go. But if there's a problem, I want to be notified right away. I don't want to wait till Monday morning when I come in, find out that my batch jobs didn't run. I also want to be able to provide audit information quickly and easily across our network. So when those auditors show up, it's going to be really easy to pull the information that they need and get it to them quickly. And you don't have to spend your day writing queries in order to pull that information. You also are going to want to be able to forecast across all of your servers. Maybe you want to schedule some downtime, some kind of maintenance on your servers. You want to be able to forecast and see what's scheduled to run over that weekend that I want to do maintenance so that I can be sure that I can see what's scheduled to run and take care of it when those servers come back up. So let's take a look at our enterprise scheduler, SkyBot Scheduler. A couple of areas that I think really set SkyBot apart from some of the other schedulers that are out on the market. Easy to use. You don't need to install a client on any of the workstations that need to access the schedule. You use a browser. That's our user interface. It's very intuitive. We've had great feedback from our customers on how easy it is to install and how intuitive our displays are. Sometimes the command line can be kind of intimidating, so you don't need to be a programmer to set up jobs within SkyBot. What you can do then is free up your system administrators and free up your DBAs for other responsibilities and pass that scheduling process to maybe a production control area, even the help desk. SkyBot provides a central console. Through this console, you can monitor all the servers on your SkyBot network. You can schedule across all of those servers. It doesn't matter if it's Windows, Unix, Linux, it doesn't really matter. All the servers communicate with one another so that your dependencies across any of those platforms or any of those applications are taken care of by SkyBot. History is also viewed from one console. So it's easy to see the history of normal completions or terminations and do some troubleshooting. Maybe you've got to drill into the job logs and find out what caused a problem. Also, auditing is across all of your servers as well as the reporting. We've also included a couple of interfaces for automatic notification of problems or delays. We include an SNMP interface, so if you do have an enterprise monitor, you can send traps up to maybe Tivoli or HP. Or we can send text messages to your cell phone or to your email. So however you want to be notified and whoever needs to be notified can also be set up. So again, you're not surprised on Monday morning when you come in and a job hasn't processed and delayed your whole job stream. This is kind of a picture of what the SkyBot architecture looks like. When you install SkyBot, we've got a central server that we install, the SkyBot server. When you install it, we install a Postgres database. And our database includes all the rules for all of your jobs, all of the information about the agents, all of the rules that you set up within that database. Then we also install an HTTP server, again, so that you can access the SkyBot scheduler with your browser. Once you have the server installed, then what you'll do is you'll install a piece of agent software on each of the servers that you want to manage using SkyBot. The communications between these servers are, we use transport layer security, so everything is secure and encrypted. So again, you don't have to worry about your auditors. The job schedule resides on the central server, so when a process is scheduled to run, server wakes up, triggers that process to run down on the local server. So you don't have to have big bandwidth in order to get those processes to run. Everything is actually run locally. When the process finishes, it sends a return code back up to the server to let SkyBot know if that job completed normally or if there was some type of an error. If there is an error, the error recovery that you set up ahead of time will go ahead and start running. So SkyBot allows you to automate jobs across all platforms. Unix or Linux scripts, Windows interactive jobs. If you've got some applications that need to interact with a Windows desktop, we have an interface for that. We have an interface for a SQL server. SQL, I know, has got its own scheduler, but again, it's not very sophisticated. So what you can do is create those jobs in SQL and then schedule them to run on SkyBot. And then again, you can build dependencies. So I might have a SQL that creates a file. The next step in that job, we've also got a file transfer function that you could run immediately after that SQL was finished processing. One thing that customers have found because of our event-driven capabilities is that the time that it takes for your batch processing compresses, because you don't have to schedule jobs at certain times hoping that that previous job is completed or that file has arrived. We're absolutely sure that this file has arrived and now it's okay to trigger the process that processes that file, maybe runs a summarization. So a couple of things. You don't have errors because absolutely you've got the resources that you need to run the process, and they can run a lot quicker because we don't have to, again, schedule based on a time that we can assume that that job is completed. We can just trigger them to run one right after another. This is an example of an event-driven schedule, that I get a file that arrives on one of my servers, maybe my web server or an FTP server that I've got that I'm monitoring. As soon as that file comes in on server 1, I can wake up, FTP that over to server 2, and run a job on that server. And again, it doesn't matter what operating system any of these are. As soon as the job on or the FTP completes on server 2, I'm going to trigger a summary process that runs on server 3. So again, eliminating all of those individual schedules is going to let you see the big picture and pull all these events together into one streamlined job stream. A couple things before I go online here. SkyBot's easy to use. Again, it's browser-based. We have some built-in dashboards that I'll show you. It's not necessary to have programming skills to schedule jobs. I know some customers that were kind of intimidated by cron, for instance. They're not used to working in a command line, and they really like the point and click of SkyBot. Drop-down menus and drop-down lists that you can pick what it is that you need from, and then go ahead and schedule those processes. The central console is great for the system administrators. You can see job history across all of your servers. You can administer all of the servers. Monitor those servers that are registered to SkyBot to make sure that they're up and running. You can also monitor services that are running. So if you've got daemons or services that need to be running on those servers, we can set up a process that will go ahead and monitor that every 30 seconds if you want. And if one of those processes goes down, we can try to restart it as well as notify you that there was a failure. We also have a flowchart capability so that you can very easily see those dependent job streams. I know sometimes that's the hardest thing is to figure out is what is going to run after what and what is going to trigger this job. So our flowchart capabilities really make your documentation easy to keep track of. There are a number of places in the product that include automatic notification. If an agent goes offline, we can notify you right away. So hopefully you're going to know that there's a problem before your users find out. We can monitor for late starts or job overruns or underruns. So if you've got a job that tends to get in a loop, you can put a job overrun notification on it. As soon as that job runs past the threshold that you've set, we can do a couple of things. We can let you know. We could also just end that job if you want to. We can also notify you on job statuses. So if a job fails, or if a job is in some type of a wait state, we can let you know immediately. Again, we want you to be able to monitor your systems by their exceptions. So if everything is running, let it run. But if there's a problem, I want to know right away. I don't want to be surprised when I go into the office in the morning, find out that my nightly batch stream was hung up and didn't complete. Saves a lot of downtime for your users because you have so many less errors. Our enterprise monitoring can, like I said, we can use SMTP or SNMP. We can receive or send traps, so we can kind of act as an enterprise monitor. So if you've got other devices out on your network, I was at a customer last week in Dallas, Texas, and they had an issue, I don't know, a while ago. Imagine that when it gets hot down there. Something happened to their cooling system in their computer room. And so they had the system set up, it sends SNMP traps, so they could send a trap to SkyBot. SkyBot could notify them immediately that their computer room was heating up, and they took care of that on the weekend instead of coming in Monday morning and finding out that their systems had all melted because, of course, they've had 80 days in a row or some number like that of over 100 Fahrenheit. So what we can do is, based on that trap, we could try to restart a process if there was a failure and also send a message to the system administrator to let them know, saw a problem, tried to fix it, maybe you want to take a look. All right, well, let's go online and take a look at SkyBot Live. A couple things that I want to show you. I've got some jobs that are on various servers. I've got a Windows server, an AIX server. Show you how to set up those file events and then trigger jobs based on those events occurring. Create those dependencies between jobs and file events. Show you how to set up an automatic notification for a service level agreement. And then we've got a job flow diagram I'll show you, and then our audit history. So give me just a second here. We should see the SkyBot, dashboard. Hopefully you can see that there. So this is the dashboard that we have for SkyBot. Again, I am viewing SkyBot through my browser interface. All you need to do for anyone that needs to manage the schedule is give them this URL once you get the SkyBot installed. And we keep a dashboard. This shows you kind of a snapshot. This is kind of a nice executive view. Number of jobs that have completed over the last 7 days, jobs that have terminated, and the reason for that termination. And then we've got more current jobs that were submitted, started, and ended in the last 16 hours. So I always have 2 shifts worth of information. Here we've got our top 10 agents that are on our network and the number of jobs that have processed on each, and then the duration of those jobs. Down here we also track our agent events. So these are our file and directory events, and I'll show you how to set those up. SNMP traps, you can see we don't have a lot here. And then our job monitors, overruns and underruns. So you can get a good idea of how your systems are running from this dashboard. So I'll just show you that what we have here in our environment. This is a list of all of the agents that we're running in this particular SkyBot network. And you can see we've got a number of different operating systems, a bunch of Windows and Linux, Sun, Solaris, a couple of AIX systems. And so we're running jobs across all of those different servers. A couple things at the agent level, you can create a queue. You can limit the number of concurrent jobs coming out of that job queue. I think our default is 20, but you can absolutely set that to whatever threshold you want. We can easily see from here which of our agents are up and running. This is a little Linux partition, virtual partition that I've got on my PC that I bring down. Otherwise, you probably couldn't hear me. It kind of tends to use up all of my CPU on my PC. So these are the different agents that we're monitoring here. Let's take a look at some of the jobs that we've got. So I've got, let's see, I'm going to show you this. So this is a list of all the jobs that we run on this system, and this one is sorted by job name. If I wanted to see jobs by a certain agent, I could certainly sort on any of these column headings. I could also filter, so if I just wanted to see one, I just wanted to see certain columns. So very easy to be able to drill down to see the jobs that you want to work with. We've got tags that we can enter on a job, and I'm going to work with these jobs that I've got set up just for this webinar. So the first job that we're going to take a look at is I've got this enterprise example. And so what this job does, I'm going to go ahead and open it up. This job runs on one of my Windows servers. That's the agent that it's running on. And it's got a schedule to run every day at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, I could add another schedule. Let's say if I wanted this to run at a different time on the weekend, I could set it up to run at a different time then. I could also add, let's see, I might just want it to run the last Friday of the month at a different time, so I could set those up. So it's really simple to set up schedules, have multiple schedules on a job. We have a little different philosophy, I think, than some of the other schedulers. A lot of the other schedulers build a calendar and then associate that calendar with their jobs, where we wanted to keep the schedule all within that job. Now, we do have calendars that are associated with our jobs, but all they tell SkyBot is if it's a holiday or not, and I want to go ahead and skip that job on a holiday, or I might be running this job on fiscal periods instead of the actual standard Gregorian calendar. So you can absolutely have multiple calendars, but the schedule itself is built into the job. Other types of schedules, I could have a period type schedule if I want to run this on the first of the month or the last day of the month or any day of the month, quarter and half year. Again, most of these time schedules are simple to set up. Timed interval, if I need to run this job every 5 minutes, maybe just during working hours, I can put in a time range. So again, really simple to set up jobs if you want them to run at a certain time of the day. Agent environment is the next step that you set up when you create a job. And again, this is because these jobs are running over on the agent, we need to tell SkyBot what user is that job going to run under, give it a working path. We store the password encrypted, so you don't have to worry about it displaying on any of the pages. And then you can also add any environment variables that that job might need. Now, in my example, I've got a SkyBot variable. You can create a number of different types of variables that you can use for your scripts or your executables. And this one just calculates today's date. And I'll show you how I'm using that in my command. So we set up the environment for the job to run in, and then we add the commands. So these commands could be a batch file, an executable. I can just add that on a command line. We also have a couple of different built-in functions that you can use. We have an interface for SQL Server. We also have a file transfer function, and those are the two examples that I'm showing here. So here's one of our SQL Server interfaces. So I've defined my SQL Server to SkyBot, and again, defining the SQL Server definition tells SkyBot what instance of SQL do I want to use, how do I want to connect? Do I want to use a trusted connection, or do I want to have a specific user sign on? So once we have that definition set up, then I can just pick it from a list, and we've got multiple SQL servers here. I'm going to use my SkyBot 2. I've created a job in SQL called Demo Database, and I want to run that job, run that SQL in this SkyBot job. As soon as that SQL finishes, I'm going to take the file that gets created, and I'm going to push that file to one of my other servers. So I could do that in 2 different jobs, or I can do it all in one, whatever makes sense. So this is my FTP system, and again, I've defined my file transfer systems to SkyBot. I'll show you that quickly. Here's the file transfer system. Again, all of these scheduling objects, you can define them, set them up one time, and then you can use them in multiple jobs. So anything we can do to cut down on your maintenance, that's what we try to do. So for a file transfer system, this is my user one that I'm using with my ID. I'm just doing a straight FTP. We do support secure FTP, both types. This is the remote system name, could be the IP address. And then this is the user that I'm logging in with, the password that I'm using, and the port that I'm using for this FTP. If I go back to my job, open that guy up. So here's what I do when I set up that file transfer, is I just select the FTP server that I want to use, determine if I want to push or pull a file from there. So what I'm doing is, from my agent, I'm going to push a file to my AIX system, and this is the directory where I'm going to put it. And what I've done is I've used that variable, the date variable that I created, and I'm going to append that onto the file name. So again, you don't have to write a script for that. Very easy to use our file transfer functions for that FTP. So many people are using FTP these days. So again, this could be 2 jobs or it could be 1. We also have an interface to, if you've got a Windows desktop application, if you've got a Windows application that needs to interact with the desktop, you can schedule those as well so that you don't have to log in and run those commands yourself. So that's how you set up a job to run. This job, again, is running at a certain time. Now what I'm going to do, so this guy is running on our Windows box. I'm going to take a look at this AIX process. And I'll just take a quick look at the job. So this job is unscheduled. And this is my AIX system. And it's probably just doing a sleep command. That's the famous sleep command. But let's take a look at how this job, what causes this job to run. So if I right-click on it, I want to look at the prerequisites. So again, this job doesn't have any kind of a scheduled time that it runs. It's going to react to these 2 other jobs, these 2 processes. One is another job. So when my enterprise example completes normally, that's one of the prerequisites. And again, for the completion codes, I could react to any of the completion codes that a job can get. So if I had some type of error recovery that I wanted to run automatically, I could do that. But I'm going to react to a normal completion. And the other thing that I'm reacting to is a file being added to a directory. So if you look at our list of prerequisites, it can be another job, which is another robot job, one of our job monitors, I'll show you that in a second, or an agent event monitor. Agent events can be just about anything that can occur on one of your servers. We can monitor for file events, directory events, or process events if a process stops or starts. Let's take a look at how those events are set up. So if we go to Agent Event Monitors, I'm going to take a look at my, let's see, I'm going to use my tag again to filter this. So I've got an enterprise file add. Here's how this event monitor works. I select, again, the agent that I want to monitor and the type of event, and this is a file type. Now again, we can use those same notification options, SNMP or email, to let someone know that this event occurred. How often do I want to monitor for this event? So I'm looking every 5 seconds. I'm going out to my AIX server and I'm monitoring for a new file to be added to this directory. Inside my home directory, I'm looking for any file that starts with the string file. Again, I can use my wildcard anywhere within the file name. Once that file has arrived and it's new, if it hasn't changed in 5 seconds, I'm going to assume that that download is complete. We could scan the file for an end-of-file marker if it had one, but mine doesn't. So that's one type of file event. So now every time this file gets added or a file gets added to this directory, I can have a process wake up and go ahead and process that file immediately. Other types of events, when a file is removed, when a file changes. So if the date and time changes, or maybe I'm appending records to a file that's already out there, Either of those could trigger this event. Or a threshold. Threshold is great for managing your log files. I can say as soon as my logs reach a certain size, I want to go ahead and trigger some type of an archive process. It's going to delete those old files or move them over to one of my archive servers. And again, you can be very specific in how you want that threshold to be met and what you want to trigger that event. So I'm going to leave mine at a file add. So that's what's processing, that's what's triggering my job on my AIX server. Now I also have a job that's running on my Linux server. And if we take a look at this job, I can see that the prerequisite, this one doesn't have any prerequisites. But if I look at where used, I can see that this process on my Linux is used as a prerequisite to a job on one of my Windows servers. So again, it doesn't matter what the operating system, it doesn't matter what the application is. We can build this dependent job stream however you need it to support your applications. Just to show you also with our Linux and AIX systems, we do have an import. If you've got jobs that are set up in cron that are running, you know, cron's a nice simple little scheduler, but again, it's just set up for one system. We have an import function. You can go ahead and you run an import command on your Linux system, and it will import all the entries in your cron tab, and then you can decide which of those you want to import into SkyBot. So you can be running both at the same time, doesn't have to. It's not an all or none. I'm going to put my enterprise, tag on here, and I'll go ahead and import one of these and show you. So this job runs every half hour. I'm just going to import one of these jobs. I need to give it an environment, again, the user that it's going to run on. Here's my Linux user. And if I import that, and I'll just say I'm finished on that. And now if I go back to my list of jobs, you can see here that I've got a new job in here that is one of those cron jobs. We put it on hold so that you can decide when you want to start running it out of SkyBot. And we use the cron expression just as it is in cron. So now you can take it and you can change this schedule to be a SkyBot type schedule. You can add prerequisites to it. You can also add some job monitors to it. So if I go ahead and edit this job and look at the job monitors that I have, I can monitor for an overrun. Let's say this job should only run 10 minutes. If it runs longer than that, I know there's a problem. So I can set up a threshold of a maximum runtime, and then if that job meets that threshold, I can go ahead and notify someone that there's a problem. I can also just end the job. I can also test for an underrun. Sometimes if a job only runs 3 seconds, that's a bad thing. Or if I do have service level agreements, I can set up and monitors to say a job needs to be started by a certain time. Again, I've got the same notification. Or I can say a job needs to complete by a certain time. So job monitors are great if you've got any kind of service level agreements. All right. So that's our job streams that are set up. Let's take a look at how we can see how those job streams work. So if I go to my job flow diagram, I've got an example started out here. Here's my enterprise example. Actually, I've got 2 job streams in here. So if I've got a dependent job, let me make that dependent and I'll show you. So if I make my cron job dependent on, let's say, one of my Windows jobs, next page, here's my dependent Windows job. So I'll say OK on that. And now if I go to my job flow diagram, I'll show you how easy it is to set those jobs up. SkyBot knows what those dependencies are. So if I click on, highlight any of these boxes, if I click on the green arrow, that will show me dependent jobs, and you can see we've already got one here. But I've added one to this Windows job. And now we've got that cron job as part of our job stream here. I can work with the jobs from this graphical interface. I can edit it. I could go ahead and run this job. This job is held. I could go ahead and release it and let it run. Look at the history. So I can do just about anything that I can do to a job from this graphical interface as well as our lists. It also shows me if there are objects other than jobs that are prerequisites. And again, I can look at the job setup from here, run the job, look at the history, show audit history for this job. Oh, and I haven't done anything to that one. Let me show you the audit history for my cron job, though. So if I look at this audit history, this is the type of audit that we keep. So here's my job. This was the time that this change occurred. And if I take a look at it, I was the user. This is the date and time. And what I did is created that job. So again, we're going to track every change that's made to the database. So your auditors are going to love that piece of SkyBot. SkyBot can also do some forecasting. And again, our forecasts are built across all of your servers. So I've got, let me show you how we set up a forecast. I've got this 5-day forecast model that I use all the time. And I want this to start tomorrow, and I want it to start at midnight and go out for 5 days and show me what's scheduled to run over the next 5 days. If I go ahead and generate that forecast, actually I did it earlier this morning, but I'll generate a new one. Now I can go and I can go ahead and view this, and that's going to show me starting tomorrow. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. So starting tomorrow at midnight, these are all the jobs that are scheduled to run, the time that they're scheduled. This Gantt chart kind of shows the length of time that this job normally runs. And so this is going to show me for each day across the next 5 days, the date and time that a job is scheduled to run, the amount of time it normally runs. This will also show me reactivity. So if I do have some of those job schedules that are dependent on one another, this will show me the prerequisite jobs and then those jobs that are dependent on it. It's going to show me that for each of the steps that I have within my job streams. So forecasting rocks. One more thing before I wrap up here, I want to show you a couple of our reports. One of our reports that customers really like is our Good Morning report. And I'm going to run this for yesterday. So I want from yesterday at midnight to current date and time. I'm going to go ahead and run the Good Morning report. So what we want to do is we want to be able to show you any of the exceptions that are in your schedule and be able for you to quickly see where your problems are. Again, if everything is running okay, let it go ahead and run. But if there's a problem, we want to be able to make sure that you're aware of that as soon as possible. So this report could be set up to run every night for the previous day and emailed to you in the morning. Excuse me. So here's what the Good Morning report is going to show you. How many offline agents do I have? Looks like I've got 9 that are offline for some reason. I've got 1 job queue that's held on one of my agents. I've had 455 jobs complete normally, but I've had 44 abnormal. Now, these are the ones that I want to drill down and see what the problem was with those. We've also had some late starts and overruns. So again, this is going to show you, this is kind of a snapshot of what your exceptions are. So this is the first page in the Good Morning report. Then the second page is going to show you the detail of those jobs that terminated. The name of the job, the date and time, and the status for that job, why it failed. Now again, you can take this information and you can drill into the job log and see exactly what the problem was with that job, what caused it to fail. Then the next page is going to be our job monitors. Again, these are exceptions to your schedule, and we want to show you exactly when they occurred, what happened, and what we did about it. Here we ended the job and we sent a trap. Here we just sent an email. Next, again, is any jobs that were missed that were supposed to run that did not, and we don't have any of those. And then a list of our offline agents. So again, all of those exceptions across your network are going to be there for you as soon as you get in the morning. One more quick thing I'll show you in our job history. Here's my enterprise example. This is going to show you the jobs and when they ran and what their completion was, how they were triggered. These guys were reactive. This one was scheduled. And then if we take a look at the job log, what we do is we capture all the standard in and standard out logs, put them in a log for you. This is the name of the agent, the name of the job, and then each step in the process. And this is my FTP. So I was, this must be a secure FTP as well. And the name of the file that was transferred and our completion code. So great troubleshooting, great picture across all of your network, allows you to take all of those individual schedulers that you've got and move them into one scheduler. All right, I'm trying to get back. I want to stop sharing and get back to, oh, here we go. Sorry, WebEx is playing a trick on me. So hopefully you learned a little bit about enterprise scheduling and how SkyBot can help you. If you have any questions, you can send them to me over in the chat on the right-hand side. I'd be happy to answer them. Oh, here I've got a question. Let's see. Does SkyBot have the ability to ensure that the same job does not run in parallel with the job itself? Absolutely it does. Let me show you how we can do that. And actually, I think by default, if a job is active, we won't run that job again. But there are also some options, like if you've got an interval job, and you want to run it every minute, you can say skip it if it's running, or if, however many minutes. So if the previous submission runs long, skip the submission of this job, or if it fails, skip the admission. But by default, if a job is already running, it will not run again. I guess those would be the interval jobs. So you'd have to say skip it if it's already running. Good question. Thank you. So yeah, you wouldn't want two instances of the same job at the same time. You could also put a condition on a job to say if this process is active, wait until it completes till that job runs. And then that job can go out and check at whatever threshold that you want to make sure that the other process is ended before you go ahead and run this job. You know, I don't think it will, Rafi's asking if it will prevent someone from forcing it to run if it is running in the schedule. There are a couple options that you have when you force a job to run. Let's take a look at what they are as well. So if I go to run the job now, no, it won't. It will let you run it if it's already active. But the couple things that you have here is that if it is a prerequisite and you don't want that reactivity to occur, you can say don't perform the reactivity, clear any prerequisites, and ignore these other conditions. But no, it would be run job now would override that. And again, you could start it at whichever step you wanted to start it at for your run. Now you can give security, you can create roles for security. So if you've got, let's say, an operator, a couple things that you can do. We would secure certain areas so that they could only view, or they could be excluded from some areas. They could use or exclude. These are as far as the creation of objects, use or exclude. And then down here in secured objects, you can get very specific. So you could have some jobs, I would say overall, I want to exclude this operator from accessing any jobs, but I've got these guys here that I want to give execute authority to. Now, they couldn't change the job setup. They couldn't change the schedule, but they could go ahead and run that job and execute it. So again, you can be very specific with security on what type of authority someone has. But yes, if they have authority to run the job, they can run the job whenever. Any other questions? Thank you. All right. Well, I will be here for the next few minutes. If you have any questions, send me a chat over on the right-hand side, or you can send me an email. Happy to answer your questions. Emma's asking if you have to have a dedicated server. You do not. You can run your SkyBot scheduler on the enterprise server can run on a Windows or a Linux or an AIX system. And it doesn't have to be a dedicated server. It can run with other applications. No problem at all. Can SkyBot send an email based on exit codes? You know, what it can do is you can build a list of the exit codes that are pass or failure, and then based on that code, we could email the job log to you. So if a job did fail, we could automatically email the log, and that would include that exit code and all the detail within it. So yes. Which is very cool. So if there is a problem, you can find out about it right away. And you don't have to get all the logs. You only would get the logs based on that failure. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for questions. How much CPU does it use? You know, it doesn't put a lot of, I run this on my PC. So it doesn't run, and I believe it's up and running now and has been running. So the demo server that I used is not my PC, but I do have an instance of it running on my PC. So it doesn't take a whole lot of CPU. I can send you some specifications on what our technical specs are, but it just wakes up and sends out jobs at a little after midnight every night. SkyBot purges history based on whatever purge characteristics you've given it. So again, not a whole lot of CPU. It just kind of sits and does its thing. We do have a 30-day free trial, and that trial is a full-blown copy of the software. You are certainly welcome to go to our website, skybotsoftware.com, and actually talk to your sales rep, and they will give you an authorization code so that you can download that trial. And you can try it on a couple of servers and see how it can help you out. All right, well, thank you for all of your great questions today. Appreciate it. I love when people listen, so I know that they're really out there.